Hello everybody, my name is Asim Qureshi. I'm the research director at the organization CagePrisoners, and we'd like to welcome you to this CagePrisoners event, which hopes to actually launch a new website, a new project. It's called Schedule 7 Stories Traveling While Muslim. Now, for those of you who are coming across CagePrisoners for the first time, the organization was set up specifically to deal with the policies that stem from the global war on terror, particularly the counter-terrorism policies and the way that they abuse and impact on the lives of people around the world. Now, I want to begin this event by doing a quick show of hands. How many people in this room have been Schedule 7'd? Now, can all those who are not Muslim please put down their hands? Keep your hands raised. Yes, I know you've been Schedule 7, put up your hand. So still, very few hands went down, actually. And the point that we're trying to make by starting this initiative through this event is to really highlight the fact that this particular law targets indiscriminately Muslims for the most part, or those people at least who have the outward appearance of being Muslim or are being suspected of being Muslim. And this is a very important point to bear in mind when we listen to the various speeches that we're going to hear today, and also hear testimony from those at the sharp end of this policy, the people who have been impacted. It's a common occurrence for many. You go to the airport, you're stopped, you've been told that it's some kind of random selection, and then what proceeds after that is basically a series of questions and even at times intimidation in order to make you feel like you have done something wrong, that somehow you are culpable by, of being associated with a particular faith. So I'm not going to speak too much myself because we have a brilliant set of speakers who are going to help bring out some of these issues. And as I mentioned, most importantly, we will have those who have been affected by these policies themselves speaking to us today. So I'd like to ask our first speaker to please come up, Saghir Hussain. Oh, sorry. I should mention quickly that Saghir Hussain is a criminal lawyer. He's also the legal advisor to CagePrisoners, and he's been working on human rights issues for the last 10 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say thank you for attending to this very important event. I wanted, on behalf of CagePrisoners, and as far as Asim, I think, said too much, the real relevance here is that I'm a member of the board of CagePrisoners. I will not be taking too much of your time, because as we said, we've got a very experienced panel here who will be able to talk through fully about Schedule 7, and including, quite importantly, we've got Matthew Ryder QC coming up shortly on his way here, who is at the moment dealing with a leading case, a test case, which is challenging the whole concept of Schedule 7 stops in Parliament, at the Court of Appeal. So we're awaiting that judgment. So I'm looking forward to him joining our panel. So in terms of legal issues, he will be addressing you on that, and then you can ask him any questions. I want to say once again, thank you on behalf of the board of CagePrisoners, and say a few words about, to those of you who don't know CagePrisoners, what we're about and how we ended up with this event here at Schedule 7 Stories. CagePrisoners was established shortly after the invasion of Afghanistan. When you recall all those people with dirty beards being arrested, and Donald Rumsfeld and George Bush said these people were the worst of the worst, and these people were unhuman, so to speak, and all of them must be responsible for the events of 9/11 because they had beards and because they were Muslims. And the way things we see in the media are that a generalized picture of the Muslims is easily accepted, that narrative. And what we sought to do from then on was to provide individual stories of those individuals, how they ended up in Afghanistan, how they ended up in Pakistan, or how they ended up in Guantanamo Bay, or various other detention camps, and their personal stories. And we never said somebody's guilty or innocent. We simply said these are human beings who deserve their due process. Let's not accept what a nasty neoconservative based in the Pentagon says about them. Let's you as human beings look at their stories, look at their individual stories. For example, someone like Muslim Beg, who was there, who's helped out, what his humanitarian work is, what his stories are. And that's really where Cage Prisoners developed. And I mentioned that because there's a link from there to Schedule 7 here, because when recently, and I mentioned Asim, who you'll see shortly, came up and wanted to say, look, he really is fed up with what's happening on Schedule 7, and not much is being done in terms of documentary format to challenge it. And we have up to 70,000, and as somebody was telling me earlier, up to 85,000 people a year who are being stopped at airports. A phenomenal figure, based mainly on their faith. And most of those faiths obviously are based on the color is brown or black. And I know obviously Muslims, there's a lot of large Muslims who are not black or brown, but largely black or brown. And this is in a society where we are told, we've learned about anti-Semitism. We learned so much what happens when you target individual communities. The targeting or the lack of success in targeting the Irish community over the last 30, 40 years during the so-called Troubles. And that, of course, is documented by Professor Paddy Hilliard in Suspect Communities, which I strongly recommend you read. Despite all that documentary evidence there, they are still going ahead with this indiscriminate, as Asim said, use of Schedule 7 powers to stop people on the basis that they are Muslims. And I'm really waiting, and I'm almost feel embarrassed that I've not been stopped, but I'm really waiting to be stopped myself one day by these officers. Because my question is going to be to them, do you really feel in your heart that morally, ethically, when you go home, you can tell your children that my job is to select people on the basis of their color or their religion and harass them? Do you feel that this is something that you want to do in your life? Are you proud of? And when history looks back at this period, when things do calm down, and to say, what was your personal role in this? Do you feel that you'll be able to tell your grandchildren that I was a big part of this whole thing? You'll see from, as I said, the stories that come out, the way people are treated, the way people are harassed, the way people are humiliated, purely mainly for intelligence gathering exercise. Because as I keep saying, the security state has got a perfect excuse now. We've got the bogey figure, we've got the climate of fear, let's build our powers, and as many powers as we can get, let's use them. And of course, Schedule 7 was a power that was given to them by a very complicit or compliant parliament who themselves don't really have the time or the capacity, and I sometimes think whether the intellectual ability to understand the impact of the laws they are passing, but the security state, who's always there, hiding in the shadows, thinking, yes, we have an excuse, let's get these powers, and what the impact of those powers is. And Schedule 7 stories, we hope, documents all those individual stories so that when people look at it, when individual people all over the world have a look at it, what's going on to those women, those men, those youngsters, what kind of stupid questions they are asked, what does it mean, and what does it tell us about Britain today? And that's really the purpose of it. And I'll let the others tell you more. Asim's here, and Asim, all the others will tell you more about it. But really, that's the purpose why Schedule 7 Stories has been established. And this is really the introduction. And on behalf of Cage Prisoners and everybody at the board, I once again welcome you and thank you for attending. Thank you very much.